announcements. To start off, I just want to let you guys know that I have been doing shoutouts at the end of the videos. I'm not going to do it at the end of the videos because I don't believe that's exactly fair. So what I want to do is I want to start it in the beginning of the videos. So if you guys are commenting and subscribing, just basically comment as much as you can. So I'll do a random comment picker each video, and I will personally announce that that person's name, and then just give them a shout out at the beginning for commenting and subscribing. So second thing is, I'm amazed by how quickly this channel is growing. It's not like huge, it's not like a couple subscribers a day, but it's still a lot more than I thought I'd be. It's amazing when I started off and it was like 10 subscribers and they were all my friends, and to grow to almost 100 now, it's pretty crazy, and I'd love to set goals higher, so that would be really great. I know it's a lot to ask, but 1,000 subscribers, when I get there, I'd like to start doing like giveaways and stuff, because that's when I can start making a little bit of money, and then I can sponsor those giveaways. So that's something I'd love to do for you guys. I also wanted to let you know I love the comment sections, and like how much tips I'm getting, and the amount of help I can help people with, or the amount of help I can give people, and I just love being able to talk back and forth. It's really working out, and I'm glad I can help, and I really enjoy you guys helping out. So enjoy the video. So at this point in time, you're probably wondering, why didn't we see a build video or build time-lapse or anything related to that? Not to make up excuses, but my camera wasn't really recording. I had the wrong settings, so I'm really sorry, but that didn't record, so that's not going to happen. So I'm just going to go through and give you guys tips on how to build it, and just go through a lot of what I figured out as I was building it. So to start off, basically, there's I guess we could start with the screws. There's screws that you use to basically put it all together. You have these plastic, you have the acrylic piece, and another acrylic piece that you're combining them to, or you're adding them to, and you're trying to screw it together. So basically you have a screw and a nut, and the nut just fits right into the plastic. Slides right in. Let's see if I can get a better view for you guys. So you kind of see down here there is a nut that just slips into the plastic, and then you push this in. So basically the acrylic holds the screw, and you just screw it in. That's basically how that works. It's pretty simple. I did find that it wasn't just a video, and they weren't just in video instructions. They were also the written instructions as well. So I didn't take a look at that, so that's my fault, but make sure you guys check that out, because that makes it a lot easier than trying to watch that video, because I had to consult YouTube, and it was interesting. So a lot of the wiring is a little tricky, so if you can make sure as soon as you connect the wiring to, say, your Z-axis motor, which is these two motors at the bottom, these guys back here. So, because that moves up and down. That's another thing to remember. Is your Z-axis is the up and down. Y is the plate moving back and forth. And X is the extruder moving. So that's something really important to remember. So when you're wiring your motors and all the other electronics like switches and the menu board, the LCD display up here, it's important to remember that you're probably going to want to tape something on and say, this is the X-axis motor, this is the Z-axis, these are the Z-axis motors, this is the Y motor, this is the X motor, this is the X switch, Y switch, Z switch. This this wire here coming from the LCD display does in fact have a red wire that you can easily identify the position to put it in. It also explains it in the instructions. You have wiring down here. Let's see if I can adjust this. So your wiring down here, just basically, you have the motors at the top, and there's a more labeled diagram in the instructions, so that's something you're going to want to take a look at. You have your X-axis motor, I believe, Y-axis, and then 2 ports for the Z-axis. Sorry, it's a little crazy down here. But then you also have these interesting screws in this mumble jumble. These things right here. Right back here, these little green things. These actually, you just take the 2 wires. Like you'll have 2 open wires from, say, the heat bed or the, I believe the extruder heater. You'll have 2 wires, and the power source in the back here. But you'll have 2 of those wires, and you just have to hook it up. The heat bed and the extruder nozzle both don't need to put them in a specific order. It says positive and negative, but you just put them both in, and because they're both red, so that works either way. Or at least I got it right on the first time. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting the power station together. Let's see if I can tilt this up for you. This is the configuration of wires that you're going to want. See it right there. So it's kind of challenging to see for me at least, these wires were actually different than the wires on the wiring that they had in the instructions. So I ended up just following YouTube video, and they had the right wiring. So you have the brown wire for the L, and the blue wire for the N, and the yellow and blue for, I'm not exactly sure what symbol this is, but this is from left to right. Looking at the bottom of it, left to right, you have brown, blue, and then yellow, blue. So I'm just hoping you guys can see that there. So that's mainly all the challenging parts. You might want to, when you're putting the heating bed on, you're gonna want to watch out for these wires in the back, because I've had to solder those on a couple times, the heated bed wires. So you're just gonna, when I put the wires on, I directed them back and around the back spring screw here, so that they'd be pulled out of the way. They have them when they have them soldered. I believe they have them soldered this way. I turned it to solder this way because they were hitting the motor and it was just getting broken off. They just broke off. So that was something I had to adjust. Your switches, you want to make sure are in the correct positions. They're not too challenging to install. When you're tightening the belt pulleys, or the belts here, you just want to make sure. Hold on, let me turn you up again. So this is a big printer. It's a little big for my camera to get. So when you're tightening these, the one video I saw, the guy basically just put a zip tie. This is the end of the pulley. Just put a zip tie around this, so it just didn't pull. It just didn't pull down. In the instructions, they show you a better way. So just following the instructions, the written instructions, I found is the best. You're gonna want to make sure you have. Let's see if we can get it in here. So it's kind of hard to see right now, but basically we just take the belt, stick it through, tighten it, pull it tight, and then loop it back around on itself, and then zip tie that down. So it basically acts as a clamp, and the ridges in the belt will keep it from pulling out. So that's a lot better than what I have on the heat bed, but I can't do anything about that. So yeah, kind of stinks. The wiring for basically last thing on here is putting the fan on, the cooling fan for the stepper motor, and to basically keep the stepper motor and electronics from overheating. It just has this cooling fan. There are two, it's kind of hard to see, but there are two holes in there, and I believe it identifies it pretty well in the written instructions about how they just there's two screws that holds the extruder together, and then on the outside of that there's two small holes that you screw this in on. Don't get worried, there's only two screws on the bottom. There's not two screws on the top for the cooling fan here. So don't get worried if you're like, I'm missing the screws or I can't find the holes. There's only two, so don't worry too much about that. It holds it on fine, and it's not really a problem. When you're putting your casing on for the wires here, I wouldn't start it too close because that'll give your wires some play, but then you definitely want to put this on. Just wrap it around. You'll get the hang of it once you keep going a little ways. You're going to want to put that on so that it protects the wire and all of the wires, because there's a bunch of wires here, you can see all of them, and it just like cleans it up a little bit. I put a little bit of wiring in the back here, or a little bit of this plastic stuff in the back here, just to hold some of this mess of wires. I'm sure there are better methods, but I didn't do that. So I also have it in the back here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's protecting the wire from the two wires, the two red wires from the power going to the circuit board, the main board. It just protects it from if you're sitting it down and it gets stuck under the plastic back here. That's another thing. I wouldn't recommend moving this too much because there's all the wires that could get caught, and the bolts and stuff can get loosened. Like, it's already slightly loose on mine, and I messed up a little bit. So there are a few things that I had to adjust, but following the written instructions will definitely give you the best results. Alright, so turning it on is as simple as just plugging the cord in. I don't believe there's a power switch or anything. One thing to notice for later is you see, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it said P802m 8.1, or anyways it was 1.6. That was one of the problems I was having with the software, so I'll get to that in a little bit. But since this is leveling, I just want to give you a quick run through of that. So the basic instructions: as soon as you turn it on, you're gonna hit the middle button, which is the quick menu. You might have to hit it once or twice because it's not that responsive. So you have, this is gonna be the back arrow. This is the select arrow. This is like scrolling. Top and bottom are scrolling. So middle is quick menu, and this is just going to be a little bit for you guys to go through and kind of figure it out for yourself. So I'm going to try to provide you with the information, but I'm not going to go through every single thing because I haven't personally figured out everything in here. Going through it though, you want to scroll down to position. Actually, yes, position, sorry. And you're going to go to home all. That's going to move everything. The Z-axis, the Y-axis, and the X-axis. And that's going to allow it to just make sure everything is in the home's position where it'll start. So, just going to go back out of that, hit the left arrow, scroll down till I go to configuration. Down at configuration, going to scroll down all the way again, and it's leveling auxiliary. So you're going to want to take a business card of some sort, or something thick, some sort of thick paper. Like I have this card here. I'm just going to use to stick under the extruder, and you want to make sure there's a little bit of resistance underneath. You want to make sure it's the same amount of resistance underneath each of the 4 corners. So you're going to click right leveling auxiliary. Maybe, hold on, give me a second. I want to try something. See if this works for you guys. Can you see that better? No. Alright, sorry. So once you go to leveling auxiliary, it's going to bring up home all. Go to position 1, go to position 2, go to position 3, go to position 4, and then Z position. So this is going to level each of these. So this is go to position 1. It's going to be in this corner right here. In this corner right here. So press that, or select. So that just moved it there. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to, once you have your screws in each of the 4 corners and the wing nuts, you're going to want to loosen and tighten each of the corners so that you have a little bit of resistance on the card between the nozzle and the bed. That will allow you to keep the bed pretty level, or fairly level. I believe there's an auto leveling upgrade that you can buy, but I'm not going to get into that right now because I think you have to install a bunch of firmware. Go to position 2, same thing. Go to position 3. And go to position 4. So you're going to want to make sure that you have some sort of ruler or caliper for making sure that the Z-axis, or sorry, the X-axis, but the Z-axis motors are leveled. Make sure the X-axis is level, but the Z-axis motors are leveled. So you're going to want to make sure the distance from the bottom, from the table and the bottom or top of this red piece here is the same as the top and bottom of the other red piece over here, because that'll allow you then to make sure that it's not at an angle, at like a really weird angle, and that'll make it again a lot better prints. So one of the things that I noticed was I needed to adjust every once in a while. I needed to make sure every couple prints, maybe like 2 prints, I needed to make sure this bed was leveled. So going into quick settings, this is just another method of homing. You just go to quick settings, which is the first selection under the quick menu. You just click the middle button and then scroll down 1, and you're going to go to quick settings. Then just go down to home all. So that's going to move everything. Another thing to remember is if this leveling is fine, you can still have horrible prints because your belts are not tight. So you really want to make sure your belts are, like, you're not putting tons of stress on it, but you want to make sure they're tight. Like, they have a little bit of flex, but they're not like floppy. So you can adjust in the quick menu. This is like one of the most helpful menus I've found. You can adjust the speed, how fast it's going to go. You can I normally run it about 100%. The first couple prints I ran it slower because it wasn't working as well. So you have your speed. There's the flow. There's preheating ABS, preheating PLA, and you can also set specific temperatures. So let's get into the printing and filament. Okay, so the first problem you're going to have is trying to figure out what you want to use for keeping the print on the bed. That is one of the most challenging things that I found that was for me that I had to deal with. So there's glue stick, you can use like an ABS liquid, you can use hairspray, you can use painter's tape, you can use all sorts of stuff, but I haven't tried the ABS juice, I guess you could call it. I haven't tried that yet, but basically it's just taking acetone and melting, just putting plastic in there and letting it basically melt the ABS. So that's what I've been printing with, is ABS. That's supposed to be a lot stronger, and I also found it for cheaper. It's normally about $20 for a 2.2 pound roll. So if you want tougher prints, I would use, like I have this. I'll link it, but again, last time I checked, they were out. It's good. This 2.2 pound roll cost me, I believe it was just like $10. So in order for me to buy it now, it's a bunch of them are like 20. But also instead of using this ABS liquid or glue, you could also use hairspray. I use unscented hairspray. It works the best for me. It really does. You can clean it off with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. It takes a little bit to get off, but so does the glue stick. Painter's tape is the easiest to get off, but it hasn't worked too well for me. So that's something I'm going to kind of keep experimenting with, see how this ABS liquid glue does, and I will let you guys know if there's any changes or anything, but I still think I'm just going to stick with this unscented hairspray. I have it's extra hold, so actually let me see if I can get you guys this whole logo here. This stuff kind of smells like hand sanitizer, so it is slightly scented. It says unscented, but you know, got this from Walmart. This is pretty cheap, so that wasn't bad. Getting into printing, I'll just show you guys some print quality here. This is actually a piece that I printed. This just clips on the top, and I'll put a link for this in the description too, but this just clips onto the top of it, and it'll direct the filament so that you can keep it on the spool here, so you can keep it on this like Tronxy spool and have it directed and not mess up your filament as much. Also, another couple things just to show you the quality of prints. The quality of the prints have gone way up, since if you're leveling everything nicely, all the belts are tightened, everything, your quality of prints will go way up. So that's one thing you really want to make sure you're watching out for. This is Kirby. Don't know how well you can see him, but the quality of the print on him is really, really nice. And I mean, I could go a little bit nicer, but. And this is another thing. I've been printing these for my friends and stuff, because they're into games and stuff. I guess you could call them gamers. This is an R-wing, so this is actually one of the more complicated prints I've done. So I just put supports in the Repetier software. Actually, it puts it in for me as long as I select. So basically, all you have to do is just put it in. I'm getting ahead of myself, but basically just put it in, and you just import the file, size it down and everything, and should put supports in for you if you have the correct thing. But the printing here, I'm trying to show you, it's a little bit messy underneath because that's where the supports were. I'd recommend using some sort of like shop knife blade or something, being very careful not to scrape up the aluminum bed. But if you just get some sort of tool that'll allow you to scrape underneath of the prints, that would be really helpful, because this works, but it like glues them down. So if you use too much, it will be impossible to get off, and I've already dented up my bed in a few spots by using incorrect tools. So you want to make sure you have something like that. So just to show you, see if I can get you guys the print quality on this. It's not bad, but I mean, again, this is a $150 printer, so don't expect like amazing, but you can expect a fairly decent prints. So, and you can also put this in acetone, or put this in an acetone bath, which I'll explain in a little bit, for making your prints better. Alright guys, so I'm just gonna basically take you through the process of downloading a file. And if you don't need to download a file and you already have your file, you could skip ahead a little bit, and I'll show you how to use the Repetier software. But for those of you that don't know how, I'm just going to go to open source software called Thingiverse, or open source website Thingiverse. I'm going to look for files that I can download for free. There are people put these on here so that others can download them and edit them and do all sorts of cool things. So personally, I'm going to be editing this thing called a ball socket. It's just something I'm going to need, and I figured I may as well show you guys the entire process of it. So I'm going to click on the one that I want. I'm going to download it. Once I have my files downloaded, well, actually, you can go to, in order to download your files, you can either download all files, or if you want to take a look at specific files, you can just hit thing files here, and then click on ball socket, or whatever the name is, and it'll download it. So it's pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. I have, if you click on thingy view, you can you can look at it three-dimensional, and once you guys have your files downloaded, I'll show you how to use my free. Okay guys, so when you have your CAD software, specifically the Design Spark Mechanical, this is the one I'm going to use. This is just a quick tutorial. I'll have a link down in the description so you guys can use this or download it. But once you have it open, you can edit it, and if you don't want to, again, if you don't want to see this, you can just skip ahead to the Repetier software. But there's a getting started page on the side here, and I'm just going to give you a little basics of how to edit in the Design Spark. So you can go up to File, open New Design, and it'll give you the orientation of the X, Y, and Z in the proper orientation. So just a quick discussion of the introduction of the Design tab. You have your spin, pan, and zoom. These are the main buttons that I use, especially for getting going. Spin it's like an orbit button. It's like the orbit button on Fusion 360. The pan moves it around basically, and the zoom zooms in and out. So you can draw with a line, a square, circle. There's 3-point circle, 3-point rectangle. There's dotted lines. There's ovals, I believe. Or sorry, this is an ellipse. I don't use those as much, but I'm sure those would be really helpful for building more intricate drawings and items. So to start off, I'm just going to basically build a square with a tube running through. I mean, honestly, just because I don't have anything I need to build right now, just the thing I need to print. So you can set your dimensions, click on it, and say we want to set it to a square of 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. So you might, for me, for some reason, I haven't seen a way once you fix the drawing on here, I haven't figured out a way to actually go back and adjust it again. I know you can move and pull and everything, but I haven't seen a way to go back and actually adjust the square size itself. I don't know if that's possible. So once you have your square, I'm just going to put a circle in the middle, and this is just going to pull it out. I'm going to say 5 millimeter. So you can change the units, or you can change the measurements again, like I'd shown you before. You can. This is a little bit annoying to me. It says snap to grid. I guess that would help, but I normally just like to leave the snap to grid off. I haven't done too much with angles, so I can't really give you an opinion on that, but that's probably going to be kind of annoying as well if you're trying to move things. So I would want to go back to the select button. I'm going to highlight, actually, no, I'm just going to highlight, actually, yes, it will highlight the entire item. So everything is highlighted. Now I'm going to click on the pull button, wait for it to load, and now I'm going to click on the outside. I'm going to pull that up, and now there's a hole in the center of it. So I mean, that's pretty easy. Spin, and so you can see all the way through. And what I've noticed is if you have, say, a square build off to the side here, let's say like build off here, I believe it will, at least my printer did end up printing, sorry, this is supposed to be next to it, but I believe it will end up printing a very thin layer of filament, so you want to make sure you have your object moved. So to move it, you can just go to select, highlight everything, move, and now you can move your object. Now if you just want to move a line, you just select the line that you want to move. Here's how to move the angles. again, you can adjust the distance that you're moving it and the angles. Move it this way. You can move the actual arrow or keys that allow you to move it, and that's a pretty basic introduction. Again, if you need more help with getting started, there's this getting started guide over here that'll definitely help you. And when you're ready to export, you go to export options, and whatever you need to export it as, PDF, STL. I normally would export it as an STL because that's what the Repetier deals with best. And I haven't experimented too much with the object files, but nonetheless, let's get into the Repetier software. So I'm going to leave this here. I could save it, but I'm going to leave it here right now. Actually, just to give you guys a good idea of what's going on, I'm going to export this object as STL. I'm going to go to Downloads, and I'm just going to call it Design 2, because that's what it is. And make sure you have your STL files selected. Now, I'm going to actually call it Design 3, because apparently I have something already saved as Design 2. I'm going to go into the Repetier software. This is, again, you want to make sure you download, if you have the same printer as me, you want to make sure you download the version 1.6, because the version that the printer came with was version 1.6.2, and that didn't work with my printer. I mean, it might work with yours, but it doesn't seem to work with mine. I think I have to update the firmware on the printer first. So I will leave a link where you can download the version 1.6.0. I still cannot get it to connect to the printer though. So here's your orbit, your moving viewpoint, and the moving of the object, zooming in and out, and zooming objects to fit. And this is to pick the side that you want to look at. So I'm going to go to load. I believe you can only load one at a time. So I'm going to go to Design 3. So this guy's pretty small. I'm going to scale him up. Click on Scale Object over here. Make sure you have the object that you want highlighted. It'll have the name, and it's called Object Group 1. And if I have multiple objects in here, it'd just be Object Group 2, Object Group 3, and so on. So I'm going to scale it up by 3 times right now. So that's a little bit bigger. And then you can rotate it. Say I want to rotate it on the Y by 90 degrees. So I flip it that way so that it's not building as high. Not that it matters with really square, but yeah, that's basically how you rotate it. You can lay it flat, reset rotation. You can mirror the object and view the cross selection. I haven't experimented too much with those, but feel free to mess around with them. So, in order to get this into the operatable file that the printer prints off of, you're going to want to go to the slicer, which will turn the whatever file you have here into a G-code file. So basically, I'm using Cura Engine, and Cura Engine has been working for me. So I go into configuration because I want to make sure all of the settings and everything are right. So I use 2 filaments, PLA and ABS. As of right now, I use two different types of filaments. I have it set already, so I had to create my own. I have ABS, default, and PLA. So for ABS, I just go in. There's the print temperature and the bed temperature. These are, I found, to be the best temperatures for ABS, and for PLA, I believe it's 196. I'm just kind of meeting in the middle for myself. So 200 degrees Celsius, 196, 190. That's in the approximate area. But the bed temperature I found to be best, and I researched a little bit. It was about 70 degrees Celsius. I'd do a little research of your own and try to get an idea of what different types of filament you're using and what might give you the best results. So it's really a matter of experimenting. So if you adjust any of these settings in the print or filament, you're going to want to hit save, or the save as, which is how I was able to title these. So there's the different types of adhesion. So if you're using ABS, that tends to want to curl up, and in order to stop that, there's brim and raft. Raft basically creates a layer of ABS underneath of it that you can break off the object pretty easily, and brim just connects the bottom layer and expands it. So basically both of them use a bottom layer to expand the base area so that it doesn't peel or doesn't curve up and give you a messed up print. You can also choose none, but I normally choose raft because it's a little bit less, not much by brim. I normally have the support type on everywhere so that everything's always being supported, and you can download another program called Mesh Mixer to add supports. I'm not really gonna get into that right now, but there's the speed and the infill density, which explains here. You can determine the infill density and basically the amount of filament that goes on the inside of the object. So as soon as you're ready, you hit slice, and I believe there's also the slice 3R. So all this is going to do, for some reason it messed up the print a little bit. So that's something you're going to want to experiment with, I believe, because it had a hollow tube that messed it up. So something like this I would put in Mesh Mixer. So it gives me approximate filament, total lines, layer count, and estimated printing time. So if you're going to save it to the SD card, if you can't hook it up directly to your computer, all you got to do is just hit save for SD print. You're going to choose where you want to save it, and then plug it into your printer and go into the quick menu and scroll down to SD card print file, and then scroll down to find your file. Good luck printing, and I hope this helped you guys.